Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us for the EBI Women in STEM seminar series. Our guest speaker today is Therese Peffer. She is an assistant director, project manager, and researcher at the California Institute for Energy and Environment within the Center for Information Technology Research in the Interest of Society at the University of California, Berkeley. Hello, Therese. Thank you so much for meeting with us.
Great. I'm happy to be here.
Perfect. So, first, can you start by telling us a little bit about yourself and what does the CIEE do?
Sure. So the California Institute for Energy and Environment has been around for about 30 years, and we administer, manage, and conduct public interest research, energy research in California. So we build teams across campus and industry, across various campuses, and we write research proposals, mostly to the California Energy Commission and the U.S. Department of Energy. But we work with other agencies as well, such as the California Public Utilities Commission and the National Science Foundation. Our core research areas include the electric grid, building energy, and enabling technology development.
Perfect. And what is your role within the CIEE?
I play a number of roles. I'm the associate director. I'm also a principal investigator of a few projects and project manager of other projects that I'll mention a little bit later. I'm also the co-chair of the Behavior, Energy, and Climate Change Conference.
What does your own research specialize in?
Well, I've got a couple of focuses. One area of focus is energy consumption within buildings. So improving building controls to reduce energy consumption and improve comfort, such as in large buildings. How do we make sure that people are getting the fresh air that they need and the temperature is right, but we also want to make sure that we're reducing energy, especially when people aren't there. Another project I have is regarding behavior. So how do you best educate people about new devices and appliances, how to design user interfaces, such as thermostats, so that they're easier to use and enable energy savings. So I had a project where we were looking at how people were using interfaces and discovering that they were very difficult to use. And we had some people that just couldn't even use the thermostat to control the temperature in our house, right? This is pretty important. And so we had a proposal where we designed a thermostat to be super easy to use. And so it would just be easier for people to use. And then the third area of research I work on is on the smart utility grid. And so how do we best support the utility electric grid by reducing energy consumption? So like back in September of this year, there was this intense heat wave in California. The electric grid was really strained, keeping all the air conditioners in both residence and commercial buildings across California, keeping them running. In fact, the peak hit a new record of 52 gigawatts. The last peak was like 50 gigawatts in 2006, right? So it's a really big deal. So we're working to reduce this load. I have a project called the Oakland Eco Block, where we're taking a block in Oakland, an older urban neighborhood, and we are conducting home performance. So improving, insulation in the attics and the floors, ceiling, and then adding new appliances. So electrification, where you're removing natural gas from the homes, like for cooking and for water heating and for space heating. We're replacing all of those appliances with new efficient appliances that will be reduce the load just because they're more efficient. And then adding solar on the rooftops and a battery so that they could have their own microgrid. So when the power goes out, their power stays on. So that's probably my biggest project right now.
That's amazing. And for people that don't know, including myself, what is a smart grid?
So a smart grid it's a good question. Smart grid is it's allowing, is working with the utility grid to make sure that it has the communication and the monitoring and things like that it needs, so that you can make sure that you're matching the solar production or renewable energy production with the loads on the grid. So the smart grid is just a way to make the electric grid more nimble. And so that instead of, for example, the strain that we had on the grid a few months ago now was mostly because everyone was using energy at the same time, right? And so you can imagine if everyone uses energy at the same time, you have to have a lot of systems in place to be able to deal with that. You have to have more power plants. Well, another way of dealing with the grid is to ask people to reduce their energy or to use energy at different times. And so a smart grid helps this process where you're able to kind of spread out the load. And so not everybody is using energy at the same time.
How does this reduce or help combat climate change, or what is the goal of being able to implement systems like this?
Sure. So a couple of things. One, if you can insulate and seal your house, you're using less energy. And basically, many of the power plants still use natural gas in California, which is a greenhouse gas. And so the more we can reduce that, the better. And then even within the home, being able to switch your primary consumption from natural gas to electricity. And then if you can use solar to provide the electricity, then you're reducing your natural gas consumption, which is reducing emissions.
Perfect. And now back to more of your career. How did you end up in your current positions that you hold at the moment?
Sure. So it's kind of a long story. I graduated from Berkeley with a degree in neurobiology and psychology, which were very, very interesting to me at the time, but I decided I didn't want to be a doctor and didn't want to be a psychologist, and started getting more interested in energy and the environment. And so I volunteered for a number of different organizations with an architect, with there was an energy fair that I was volunteering for. And through that, I ended up with a job at Home Power Magazine. And I like to write. And so it was nice working for a magazine. I was editing and doing other things, and learned a lot about solar energy because we were off grid. We were living 8 miles from the nearest utility line. So we had to produce our own power. So that was a real wake up call for me. It was very interesting to me. And so I started thinking about architecture as a career, because buildings are where people are and energy is consumed. It kind of brings it all together. So I went to architecture school, got a master's in architecture, and then decided to work for an architect to get licensed. And when I was in architecture school, I got the opportunity to teach as a graduate student instructor and really enjoyed teaching. And so went back to Berkeley to get a PhD in architecture building science in order to teach, and kind of fell in love with research. And so stayed on as a researcher, and was able to get a position at CIEE right out of school so I could continue with the research.
Perfect. And what would you say keeps you interested in the research that you're doing? Are there any other motivations you have other than scientific curiosity?
Sure. I am really passionate about reducing greenhouse gases to mitigate the effects of climate change, and energy consumption is, especially in buildings, is a big contributor to that. So that's part of what motivates my work. I'm also really interested in people. I had years ago, I was volunteering for an organization called Rebuilding Together, where they would go into people's homes that were elderly or low income and fix them up in whatever ways. So I was part of the energy team, and we were going into people's houses and helping to seal cracks and things like that. We were also giving people these programmable thermostats that you could program on a schedule so it automatically turns off the heat or the cooling at night or when you're not there, that sort of thing. And what we discovered, we installed one for this senior woman, and she called us an hour later and said, "Come take this out. I can't figure out how to use it." And so it was a real eye opener for me, to think about the usability of devices, and also to think about too what motivates people to save energy, to buy efficient products. How are they using these products? So those two interests, both greenhouse gases and just how people use devices to save energy.
Lastly, this question is more personal, but what would be one piece of guidance and or insight you would like to give to future young people, especially young women looking to go into STEM?
So I would say first, find something that you're passionate about, because that's what's going to keep you going during when you get tired, when you get bogged down, when you get stressed out. Just find something you're really passionate about. Someone once said to me, find a way to make a living doing what you love. And I think that was really good advice. I would say too, seek a good mentor. I've been lucky to have a number of really good mentors over my career. And they took the time to ask me questions. Why do you want to do what you want to do? Why do you want to be a scientist, or do you want to be an engineer? Do you want to apply knowledge, or do you want to, dig into science for science sake? What's your path? Where do you see yourself in 10 years? All of those I think are really good questions. And it's really important to have someone have your back. I would say one of the best pieces of advice I got is just to know that, each of you know something that no one else knows, and just own that and try to build some confidence around that. Because especially when you go into a PhD, you know a lot about a really narrow topic, and own that. Everyone's like that. Don't worry about the things you don't know, because I think imposter syndrome is real. I often walk into a room where I'm the only woman there, or one of two women there, and I've led projects where it's mostly men. And it's easy to get into that feeling of oh my gosh, they know more than I do. No, they all know something. You know something. So just try to own your own unique values and insights and experiences.
Well, thank you so much for such a great conversation. It's truly admirable to see a woman so accomplished in your career and have such great passion to help combat climate change. I, alongside Evie, I would like to thank you for your time and wisdom. We look forward to seeing what comes next for you, and we wish you the best and luck in all of your future endeavors.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you all for watching. Please make sure to like and subscribe, as well as click the bell to be notified for our next interview. Our socials are linked here as well as on our website. If you're interested in climate change, renewable energy, biosciences, and all that comes with that, and also looking to see what career path you would like to take if you're interested in that, we highly recommend checking our socials and